Hello there, and welcome back to The Disconnected. I'm here with Frank Jaffe of Altered Innocence, somebody that I have admired the work of for quite some time, and I hope a lot of you have as well. I've been dying to have this interview. Frank, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Yeah, you're welcome. Happy to.
You, first off, I have to be a little bit jealous. I don't know if you're ever thinking of selling the banner behind your head. I would love the Altered Innocence banner.
I made it a long time ago for, I went to Art House Convergence, which is right before Sundance happens every year. And they have this meet the distributors thing. And I was like, oh, I want to be like at a farmer's market, like table. I want my little farmer's market, like banner thing. If I make more, I'll let you know.
Well, gosh, there's so many things that I want to talk about because Altered Innocence has been doing this for a while now, but now I kind of just want to tie it into merch for a second, and I got to ask just a silly question. Has Criterion or Janus ever said anything about anus films? I have to know.
No. No, they haven't. It's too funny. If they went against me, that would be it'd be party poopers. That wouldn't be fun. But no, I even know a few of the staffers at Janus actually have the T-shirts, and I think they made jokes where might not wear this in the office, but it's cool. It's cool.
It's such a great move to do something like that, especially with films that genuinely feel art house, like they feel at home on Janus. It would make sense for many of these films.
Absolutely. I agree. I mean, it was a funny thing I noticed one day and I was like, no, let's try it. And then it's funny because sometimes people have varying, I mean, of course, I know it's like slightly immature, but it's kind of me.
That's the point.
And it's the point. And it was funny. I know one of my filmmakers was like, I don't know about that. I'm like, just stay with it. I think you'll like it. And then eventually after he saw the reaction in the theater, we played, this was Equation to an Unknown. And we played it in a theater, and he saw the reaction. He's like, "No, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. You're right. I'm glad you pushed me into this."
I love that you called out Equation to an Unknown because I have a story about that I'm going to tell at the very end of this. So for anybody that's never heard it, stick around because I think you're going to laugh like crazy at what I did to somebody. But we got to get into it. Altered Innocence, been a label for a handful of years, was an OCN partner label for a long time. One of the first OCN partner labels, just made a big move public, and we're going to get into the details of that. But first, for anybody that doesn't know, Altered Innocence, what is the mission? What is the point of the label? What is the vibe you're going for?
Yeah, when I started this, I was still working at Strand Releasing. I have a big appreciation of what they do, and so I was extremely excited to go to work for them. And then when I started wanting to do my own label, one of my favorite genres as a kid was the coming of age genre. I remember, browsing Blockbuster and just, eating up all those picture this exclamation titles and, titles like Mysterious Skin and things like that. So that was kind of the basis of what I wanted my company to be, these edgy coming of age films, that was the basis. And then I'm a gay man, so eventually LGBT became a very big part of what I wanted this company to do. And so those are the two genres I pretty much go after, but there are like little, things that get thrown in there that I just like, things like Loose, by Tillman Singer, or things like Irreversible by Gaspar Noé. I mean, I think I was talking about this the other day with someone. If you told my 15-year-old self that I would be working on Irreversible, I remember watching that with my dad when I was like 13 or 14. And I remember him, being like, turn it off. We did turn it off during that scene. He was like, no, too much. So I had to like sneak back downstairs after he went to bed and like finish watching it before we sent it back to Netflix. So yeah, things like that I'm just loved as a kid and I'm thrilled to work on now. So it's kind of basis of what I'm trying to do.
I first off, I love that explanation because so many of these you could really see in this odd, like, triangular Venn diagram of wonderful coming-of-age films, wonderful LGBT queers coded in some ways, at least, even, partially genre-leaning on a few of them.
Right.
And then some that you can tell are literally like singular from Frank's mind. He just loves this movie. And what I love is when all three of those circles match right in the middle, and it's this queer coming of age, just, this is something Frank loved and he had to put out. And I love those releases. So I I tried peek behind the curtain when I do these interviews, especially for partner labels. I try to have some titles ready so I could flash. You've been doing this so long, like
I should do the same.
It's not easy to
Hey.
have some titles ready when I literally have like 35, and I've loved the vast majority of them. A lot of people that have been on this channel love Altered Innocence, and I want to like dive into all these titles, but I mean, there's just so many. First off, starting your own label from Strand, like how do you make that leap from working at a label to feeling the confidence to start something?
It was a slow start. I've always kind of done that, start safe, go crazy. So basically, I was there for about 2 or 3 years, and not to knock them, but I realized I wasn't really going to learn anything that I really, I was really interested in acquisition, the whole process. And I was quickly like, I gotta do it myself. I'm going to do this. And so I started off with 2 kind of things. One was Doors Cut Down, which was a short film. It's on Altered Innocence Volume 1. And that was a short film I really loved. And I was like, man, it looks so bad. Let's see if we can try to restore it. So that was kind of the first thing we did. We played it at Outfest, and then I kind of helped put on VOD. But the other big one was Concrete Night. That was AI 01BD. And that was a film that came through Strand. They pitched it to us, and we did a little bit of acquisitions around the office, and pretty much all of us agreed, like, it's not going to do well theatrically. It's, it's already past its festival run. But I loved it. I was just like, oh my God, this is so gorgeous. And I'm a huge Blu-ray nerd. So I was just like, man, if I don't do it and put it out on Blu-ray, no one is ever going to put this out on Blu-ray. So that was kind of my first title. And, I got the blessings of my bosses. They were like, as long as you're doing home video, that's totally fine. So that's kind of how I started. It took a while to start, but then I did Concrete Night. I did Desire Will Set You Free, Violet, which was a really cool one. And eventually,
I had that one ready.
It's such a wild one. That was again, another one of those films where, man, really hard to release theatrically, but it has to be on Blu-ray. I mean, that 70 millimeter end sequence is stunning, and you need that on Blu-ray. And then that all progresses up until I see The Wild Boys. And that was another one where we were watching it at work. We were watching it on Strand's little, we have like a 32-inch TV. It's ridiculously small. But of course, don't tell my bosses, but I definitely got stoned before watching it. And as the movie goes on, one by one, the staffers of Strand start to leave. And then by the end credits, I'm the only one left in the room. And I'm just like, holy shit, this movie's amazing. And then I talked to, my bosses, and they're like, no, we're passing. Okay.
Not shocked at all.
No, it's a wild. I mean, I think they should have. I actually think it is kind of a Strand releasing type title, but whatever. So that was my first theatrical release, and that was kind of what made me start leaving Strand and fully starting my own company, by myself.
Interesting. So for everybody at home, for the timeline, about when was that happening? That was what, 2017 or
17? Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Okay, so around then, a lot of these festival type films were doing fairly well. We hadn't had the COVID bomb yet. Nothing had killed everything. But around that time, it's still, I really want to hit home for a lot of people, because those watching this channel, a lot of them have had that aspiration of, man, if I could have my own Blu-ray label, how easy that would be, because I love movies and whatever. That confidence, you have to really have a lot of knowledge first, but then to now be in a different era for, some of these films are dying theatrically or not being picked up for anything. How do you think it's changed since you started the label?
I mean, gosh, I don't even know what to say. I mean, home video has, kind of declined a little bit. Festivals have definitely declined, and theatricals kind of declined. But that's not to say there's not a new generation of filmmakers that are coming up right now, and a new generation of, actually, I meant to say audience goers, honestly. I've been seeing a lot of young people through Letterboxd and other opportunities get really excited to be a cinephile again. So, I'm going to stick in there. I'm hoping that, things get better and better. I don't know. I don't know what to say. It's hard to, so I will say one thing that big changed before the pandemic and after the pandemic is the older audience. Releasing films theatrically we always knew there was going to be the 20 people a day that were absolutely going to go see a movie theatrically. We weren't worried about it. We were just like, no, we've got the old audience, and as long as we target it towards them, and the trailer's cool looking, it's got all the quotes and everything like that, we'll be fine. We won't do awful. But that's gone now. They figured out how to use their Roku devices, and so theatrical is really difficult now, which is, I think, the biggest change. But so what I do is I definitely try to focus on movies that I think will break out. And that's what you were saying earlier about genre. Yeah, that's why I love genre personally and for theatrical purposes. It's a movie it's a type of it's a type of movie where you kind of have to go see it on a big screen if you really want that experience, see it in surround sound. I mean, Loose is a great example of that. Oh my God, the surround soundtrack on that is one of the most banging surround soundtracks. And of course, if you have a surround sound set up at home, that's great, and you should have that. But seeing in a theater, it's so cool.
That's the other thing about the catalog that you have created and curated over the years is I think that you have this odd, very singular, experience-driven catalog that a lot of labels do not have. And there's something about these that are so deeply personal as stories that the people that watch these together, whether it be families or friends, can literally afterwards be like, shit, that rang way too true for me. Or, God, yeah, I went through a lot of that same stuff. Or, these coming of age stories that people it meant so much to like you growing up and to me growing up. It was one of my favorite genres. And you're bringing this new generation of filmmakers to an audience that can go, I mean, that movie was good, but, whatever. And then 3 days later, they realize, wait, I can't stop thinking about that movie. And it last. A lot of these films are hard-hitting and done in a way that, especially on home video, you can continue to dive into. There's things to discover that you, knowing the end of the story, can develop, the way that you feel about it from the beginning. And again, a lot of labels cannot curate like that. And when you can find that you align with somebody's taste, and I have with yours, it becomes a really special thing. So I just want to say thank you again, because, man, a lot of these titles are impeccably chosen.
I really appreciate that. And a little story off of that, I always tell people when I'm watching a movie for acquisition, can I watch this 4 or 5 times? If so, then it's approved. If not, I can't, because I do everything myself. I do all the authoring, all the, I check the DCP and everything. So I have to watch it 5 or 6 times or something, sometimes more. So I have to really like it. And I'm really glad that you also feel the same.
Well, and a lot of these, it serves better, like the Mandico titles on second.
Yes,
right?
100%. I remember I saw Ultra Pulp at Cannes 2018, and I remember sitting through it and just being like, okay, that was cool. That was a lot. That was cool. And then I remember on my repeat viewing, second or third time, I was like, it's a masterpiece. It's probably my favorite film of his. I am in love. Ultra Pulp is now one of my favorite things he's ever done, except for The Wild Boys, which is still always going to be my first love. But yes, I agree. The Mandico films are great on rewatch.
Amazing. Yes. So going back to the theatrical, it changed a little bit with COVID. You lose that foundation. And now, I mean, I think I get the sense from a lot of these smaller labels that they are seemingly pushing into home video a little more, because if you can get that base audience, it kind of fills in that 20-person theatrical. And so you have that built in. But we don't necessarily always have that with home video either. So have you noticed, very curious what you think on this, certain titles? Like, is there a flair for your releases that certain ones, these are going to sell well? Basically, I'm asking, what is your audience?
Older titles. I mean, well, it depends, and I have different experiences coming from my old distributor. I'm on my third distributor now. So I was with CAV first. Now I'm at MVD now, but I was at OCN before. And at OCN, especially being on that Vinegar Syndrome website, oh my God, the older titles sold so much better, Right. And I would also know that, the gay titles might not sell quite as well. Not saying they wouldn't sell at all, but, it's certainly a more straight audience on Vinegar Syndrome. It's fine. Whatever. Right. So yeah, I could tell certain titles would sell well. Like, what's a good example of one where I knew it was going to be great? I mean, Arrebato, I knew was going to do really well. That was an exciting title to work on.
Right.
I should also have my stack in front of me to compare.
One that with cover art like this was bound to be a hit. I'm sure this did very well.
Yeah, I mean, Knife Plus Heart is probably one of my all-time bestsellers. I mean, the theatrical just went really, really well on it. Festivals really loved it, and that movie's a perfect storm. I mean, it's got the Giallo homage, it's got the LGBT angle, it's a slasher, it's set in the scuzzy porn world.
Right.
It's got Vanessa Paradis. I mean, it's got everything. It's a great title. There needs to be more of those.
I completely agree. Completely agree. With things like Knife Plus Heart, it seems to be a gateway to Altered Innocence that I can show people. Hey, if you like this, you might like this one.
I mean, Jan Gonzalez is a great friend of mine, and I love his films, and he has impeccable taste. He was the one that really helped me get Equation to Unknown out there. He was even the one that kind of pushed me to do Dressed in Blue a little bit. I watched it and I was kind of like, oh, that was good. And Jan was the one, he said, give me a link and I'll watch it with my friends and let you know what I think. And then he watched it and he's like, Frank, if you don't distribute this, I will kill you. And then, of course, it turns out to be one of, my more favorite films in the collection as well. But yeah, Knife Plus Heart, it's just got everything. And it's pretty perfect. But, it's funny. I actually, if you had to ask me which was my favorite Jan Gonzalez movie, besides Islands, the short film, which is probably the best thing he's ever done, but it's a short film. But I actually prefer You in the Night, the feature film, which I got to work on at Strand releasing. But that movie is really magical for me. So I was extremely excited when Strand let me put that out on Blu-ray. That was I was worried for a second.
That's hilarious. You just brought up another thing that I had on my list that I had to bring up. And again, I don't want to just sound like I'm gushing at somebody, but I've loved so much of what you've done. The Altered Innocence collections of shorts. What is the best way to say this without pissing other people off? Not many labels would take a risk on shorts, period. Not many labels would put the time and effort into restorations, into special features, into curating, especially Volume 2, which is so well done, by the way. Curating an experience of what a lot of them would just say is this random mishmash of titles, but they're not. There's something special about collecting them together like this. How do you make that choice? And did it feel risky when you were doing it?
Yeah, super risky, but super risky, because I also believe in paying all the filmmakers. So,
right.
The costs really add up when you're, paying these amounts to all the filmmakers. But I love short films,
too.
And so, again, going back to, I love short films and I love Blu-ray. And that's kind of where it came from. I was just like, you know what, if I have to lose money on it, I'll lose money on it. But, that's where it came from. Trying to put some of my favorite short films and be able to view them. I still do it to this day. If I'm having an off night and I'm just kind of I'm kind of feeling moody right now, I'll just put on some of my favorite shorts on Volume 1 or Volume 2. And it's just always perks my day up. It's great.
Really nice way to pad the letterbox stats too.
Oh, for what? For titles my company's released, or
just for shorts? If you watch 10 shorts in one night, all of a sudden, hey, I'm watching a ton of movies.
It's funny. I kind of just started using Letterboxd this year, kind of anonymously, and I don't know. I don't necessarily log shorts. Should I be logging the shorts too?
It depends on what you want to use it for. I say that as a joke because there's some people out there that are insane. I know, there's a couple of people on my Discord that will this year end with 800 to 900 films watched. And first off, I have kids. How do you do that? That doesn't make any sense to me. But second, I wish I could do that, but then I have to wonder, do I pad that with 100 different shorts? But I mean, the big thing though is a short is such an inviting way to discover a filmmaker that you probably never would have discovered. And when you're investing 12 minutes instead of 72 minutes, that's life-changing for a lot of people. And you could discover 4 different styles in less than an hour and suddenly have a new favorite filmmaker, which... Yep,
that and just also, I really wanted to support the filmmakers I work with and try to find new ones and start relationships with them. That's and sometimes there's cool things that happen, like Peter Strickland. I'm like always been a huge Peter Strickland fan.
Right.
And then to be able to work on one of his short films and suddenly be able to start talking to him, it's just the coolest thing ever. And he's such a great guy. And then also just supporting my favorites like Cam Archer or Jan, or, as you know, Jessica Forever was with Shudder, but, I love their short films. So working more with Carolyn Pogge and Jonathan Vanell is really cool. I'm very excited. There are new features coming soon, I hear. I'm very excited.
The other thing that I think is really cool about the shorts is it gives the idea of a film festival, because it is is curated, and it brings that sort of, I'm going to spend all day just in the weeds with a whole bunch of random ideas and see what I can feel today.
Yeah, I started doing festival work, kind of. That's kind of how I started getting into the film business, and the road diverged. Everyone always says there's two roads. There's the, like you're like cool and doing film festivals, or you're like evil and doing distribution. So then I started off on the cool path, and then I ended up in the evil path, but trying to make it less evil day by day.
Well, one of the ways that you make it less evil, we probably should talk about something that you mentioned a minute ago too, and that's how straight the OCN audience is overall. And I got to talk about the fact that a lot of these filmmakers, without somebody literally holding their hand to the finish line, are marginalized. A lot of the people that are making these films do not get the attention, do not get distribution without some form of, I hate to use the cliched word, but like an ally helping them get there. Obviously that's important to you, especially as a gay man, but from behind the scenes, is that difficult to do for a label?
I mean, you're asking like about hand-holding for a smaller film, or
just helping marginalized filmmakers, whether they be gay or trans, whether they be a person of color, whether it be somebody that a lot of these films would never get distribution from a lot of other people.
Yeah, I mean, luckily it all starts with the film festivals, and thankfully we have so many cool queer film festivals out there that are pretty much the first ones on the line that are raising these voices up. It's really difficult to get those big budgets, especially in America, where there's basically no public funding. And if you look at my catalog, you'll see pretty much 3/4 of it is European or Asian or something else. And there's a reason for that. It's because they have all that state funding, and you can do distribution without investing a huge amount of money. But then when you turn to the American sector, these are movies where either you're making for $1 million, $2 million, and my God, the distributor had better invest $500,000 into it, or you're the little budget indie who is just struggling. And you do need to watch out for those, and you do need to lift those voices up. And I certainly try to. And I'm glad that other people are starting to do it as well.
I agree. This is one of those labels that I think, I don't try to say this often, but a lot of people that are doing interviews, or I hate using the word influencers, but people on YouTube or podcasts or whatever, sometimes use like you should buy this to support it. And I hate saying that, because I don't want to make people feel guilty or shameful for not being able to afford it. I understand this is from a place of privilege and all that. However, this is one of those labels that I feel like if we want more of this sort of thing, you kind of have to speak with your wallet a lot of the time. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I do try to make, everything as affordable as possible. And, there's always some people say, well, I can't afford a DVD or Blu-ray. And I tell them, I honestly have most of my titles on VOD. And even if you really don't have a budget, then, I've been putting a lot of things on Tubi like everyone else, AVOD, it's cool. I like it a lot, and I don't mind it. Actually, I actually kind of like watching a commercial or two. I feel like it's like Videodrome. I feel like I'm connected back into the network of the world by watching commercials. I kind of miss them sometimes. But yeah, it's true. We're indie. It's definitely important. It is. I can't give out everything for free, unfortunately. And also just think about the filmmakers. Everything goes back to the filmmakers. I'm only kind of like a glorified like creative middleman, but honestly, it's not. I don't keep all the money. It flows. So it's not just stopping with me. It really is going back to the filmmakers and the producers, and that helps them make more movies as well.
So a couple more questions about the back catalog. If you had to tell somebody this is Altered Innocence personified, what title are you picking?
The one I'm kind of most proud of these days is Arrebato. I mean, that's just a title where it was, not only was it like a discovery, but because it just has never been theatrically released in the US, other people, I mean, it wasn't a discovery on my part, but it's for the US audience, certainly. And then, the fact that we were the first to restore it. So it's kind of this cool premiere. And it's got all the elements. It's got the queer, weird things. It's got the dolls in it. It's got Pedro Almodovar in it playing a woman. Like, it's voicing over a woman, transgender woman. It's really got everything. And that's a movie where I can kind of watch it over and over again. And, it's just, a movie I'm very, very, very proud to have released.
Well, going on that note, the next thing I was going to ask, is there a certain title that you feel extra proud that your label gets to be the one to deliver that message to a new audience?
Ooh, new message. I mean, God, I feel like we're treading on the same ones, but Dressed in Blue, I mean, that's one where we're seeing such an honest portrait of trans women in Spain at such an early time. And earlier than Paris is Burning, earlier than lots of these other films. And to bring that message, like, from the old, like an echo in time. And it still holds, so true to this day. And it's only discovering more and more audience. There's a TV show right now, the second season of Veneno is called Vestidas de Azul. And they're actually taking that documentary and they're kind of docu-fictioning it, where they're taking those characters and you get to see their lives now.
Wow.
And so it's a whole new audience of people are going to be able to see these women's lives. So that's another one I'm pretty proud of.
That I've not heard of that. That sounds like an incredible idea.
Did you ever see Veneno? Season one of Veneno is so good.
No, now I must. God, that's
I would love
amazing.
to put that on Blu-ray one day. That would be great.
That would make a very good entry too, especially as a companion piece. Wow, that's incredible. One super personal, obviously, because I got to help with a small part of it coming out. This felt like a big deal this last year. This was a huge discovery for me. This was the first time I'd seen it, because it had been kind of difficult to see for a lot of people, unless you were, willing to go to the depths of the ocean, basically, to find an old version of it. But can you tell people about Coming Out and why it's an important film?
Yeah. So this is a film, I saw when I was probably 17 or 18. And, it's an East German gay film. That's kind of one of the bigger reasons why it's a big deal. There weren't many of them. And it was premiered on the same day the Berlin Wall fell. And it's it's a snapshot of a area that was crystallized in time. But, more than that, it's also just a very emotional film, showing someone who's conflicted about, wanting to come out, but also kind of loves this woman he's gotten in a relationship with. It's really, unfortunate for him. And it's a very tragic film, but really well made. And I love it. And we did that as part of a 2-film kind of arrangement with Jaffe, and they were the East German Film Foundation. And then the other one was that Stücke Heinze 15, which is also very, very different, much more playful, but also an equally good East German film.
Coming Out is so beautifully filmed too. For anybody that hasn't watched it yet, just go look at the trailer. It might be enough to talk you into it, because it is shot in this very vulnerable fashion. A lot of the ways, especially from the 2 male leads that are alone in this room of this very small apartment, but the way that they frame everything, it just feels soft in a way that is inviting, and it's just crazy to think about all the historical context behind it, which leads to the next thing. Is I think that Altered Innocence really should be applauded for what they're doing with placing context with a lot of these films. A lot of the extras, I hesitate to say that they're some of the best on the game, but some of these, they're so meaningful to make you understand not just what is happening in the film, but why that film is important, which is lost from so many of these labels nowadays. I would love to hear, how do you choose what extras to go after? How do you choose who to collaborate with? Is there some sort of mission that you're after with the extras on these discs?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the mission truly is what can we do? Because a lot of the older films I work with, a lot of the people are deceased, unfortunately. So, we kind of start with what can we do, and then we go from there. And I usually work with a few different producers, bonus features producers. Elizabeth Purcell's one I work with quite often, as well as Lee Gambin. And they kind of have their stable of people they work with. They'll, if they feel like a commentary with a queer sex worker is, something they want to matches the film, then they'll do that. Sometimes Liz will go into archives actually and try to dig up old materials.
Yeah.
That's how we found, and sometimes from our own collection too. That's how we found Truck It. We got Truck It. We found some 16 millimeter loops, I think at the One Archives. And then she found a VHS tape on eBay randomly, super last minute. I don't think we had to move the date, but we were rushing. We got the VHS tape, it was shipped to her. And then we were like, okay, we have to transfer the VHS tape as quickly as we can. That was a really fun find last minute. So technically, even though it's 3 films on that LA Plays Itself set, it's actually kind of 4 with the addition of not only the 16 millimeter loops, but also the full VHS.
Right.
Trying to think of any other fun examples. And sometimes cast, we try to get, we're not super well funded ish, so we can't do some of the things that Severin or, those people can do, where they can really get those crews out to France and Germany and the UK. But we have done a little something like that with Wild Reeds, Stéphane Rideau. We actually did get him in the room and do some, little reminiscing with him. But yeah, we just try to figure out what we can do. We try to scratch our brains as much as we can. And sometimes there's limitations. Sometimes we want to include a director's old short film, but there's some crazy or French organization that has a stranglehold on it that won't let it go for under $10,000. And we're just we can't do that, sadly. Right. I always get really annoyed at some companies or filmmakers that basically, strangle their films from ever seeing the light of day. It sometimes gets really sad.
Yeah, really hamstrings the accessibility of a lot of this stuff, especially things like shorts that there's not going to be some old VHS on eBay or some random DVD from the Czech Republic that you can find or something like that.
Yeah.
Some of the more recent titles that were released on OCN, could you tell us about Gay USA and The Strangler? Sure. Try to get some eyes on those.
Yeah, so I'll go The Strangler first. The Strangler was unique a little bit because it was a pitch, basically. There was a sales agent, and she has this catalog of kind of French rarities and B-sides. And on one of her, she's kind of older, so it's kind of like a PowerPoint presentation. I'm like, okay, interesting. And one of the pages was Paul Vecchiali. And I had sent this whole thing to Jan, and he was like, oh, Paul Vecchiali's great. He's a gay director, and he's just fabulous. So she sent me pretty much all of his films. And so I spent this one day just sitting in my TV, just watching all of them. And they all were, unique and playful and sometimes boring. But one of them really stood out, and it was The Strangler, just from the first scene. I mean, the opening scene of that is so good. The music, the cut out letters for the title sequence, everything. It's so good. And then, and also as one of the actresses from Salo, which is one of my favorite movies. In fact, fun fact, if you ever watch his movie Femme Femme, there's a scene in that, and it's actually a scene from Salo. Pasolini loved this movie Femme Femme so much that not only did he hire those 2 actresses to be in it, he had them recreate a scene from Femme Femme in Salo. So if you're ever wondering what that weird scene is where they're like, why am I not getting paid or whatever? That is from Femme Femme. Anyway, so The Strangler was great, and we basically just did a deal, and then I brought it to America. And so that was kind of the short story long. It's a great film. I love it. Everyone has different opinions on it, but I think has this weird, almost giallo, French, moody, sad boy film. It definitely hits all the right spots for me. And especially, I feel like in America, especially with younger people, they're really getting into Bresson these days and some other kind of filmmakers like him. And I felt like it would hit that sweet spot. I think it did. So that's the story on The Strangler.
I would agree with that. I feel like some of the younger watchers are in their emo era for some of these movies.
Exactly. Me too. And then with Gay USA, that was spearheaded by Lee Gambin, who's one of my bonus features producers, and he wanted desperately for me to do Gay USA. And I was like, okay, well, Gay USA has been out for a while, on VOD and things like that. And I was like, okay, we have to sweeten it up somehow.
Right.
And then he had the idea to do, what if we accompany with other protest short films? And I was like, okay, that's great. So we spent, it's kind of like 2 years, I think, trying to gather it all together and figure out the rights. And some were easier than others. And we just kind of made this massive set that just is really speaking to people and is just really important. This vital record that needs to be archived and people need to own and make sure those images always, stay with us.
It's a rather timely collection, unfortunately, which is not a great way to explain something that should be so fundamentally known, and yet the decades since many of these were made, not much has changed. If in fact some of it's gotten worse, and yet we're in a situation where the people that need to watch this likely never will, and thankfully the accessibility for it makes that a little more likely. But it's just,
I'm not expecting everyone that's not going to be interested in that to immediately go run pick up a copy, but the people that will pick up a copy will hopefully show their friends, and hopefully it'll be on library shelves, and hopefully it'll just give everything a little bit more access, a little more accessibility. I guess so.
Are you saying that an 80-year-old cishet conservative man will not run to watch this?
Hey, there's a lot of cool people in this world. That's all I'll say.
I completely agree. So that brings us to now. We're now in present, and we got the news that in January, those were the last Altered Innocence titles coming through OCN,
Yes.
and we are in an interesting transition period. So I'm sure some people would like to know a few things. First off, why partner with OCN to begin with?
I was with CAV. They were very nice, but it just wasn't quite working out for me. And so I knew Joe Rubin from Vinegar Syndrome for quite a while. He'd helped me do some restoration work, I think with Equation to an Unknown. And they just had been starting this partner label thing. You're right. I was one of the first, Fun City, there was one or two others. And then, I joined on board. And it was just felt like a great opportunity, one indie company working with another indie company and trying to, they had that cinephile audience, and right. I knew it was going to be, a fun time. And they were doing that whole slipcover thing. I'd never done it before, to be honest. I still don't quite get it, but they are pretty. And so that was kind of another opportunity. I knew if I didn't go with them, I probably would never get into the slipcover game. So it was kind of also another little fun little push to go do something more creative.
I hate that the slipcovers are literally like the core epicenter of so much of this discussion, but
very interesting.
I'll leave that diatribe for another interview or discussion, I guess.
Indeed.
So now the next part, it is time to move on. Altered Innocence is now moving away from OCN. You can still buy some of the titles that were distributed through OCN until they're gone. Most of those have been moved, or all of them have been moved to the going out of print section on the website, and OCN will no longer be selling those. So why is it time to move away?
Gosh, there's many of the other labels have commented on it, but it's getting a little crowded, honestly. That's one reason. It's a little less focused now. Breaking through the noise is getting a little more difficult. And, there were also some kind of disagreements, which I can't really go into, but all I'll say is there is kind of a reason why some of us are leaving, sadly, but we're still good friends. Nothing too bad, but we just want to be a little more independent, make some of our own decisions, all kinds of things versus, title selections, print runs, all kinds of things like that. The move away from that will make me, feel like I have more flexibility with that kind of thing. And a return to my humble DIY routes. I'll be, once again, hitting the streets and letting people know, we're over here, buy Blu-rays. It's fun. I like it. Maybe I got too comfortable in a way. So I'm excited, though. I'm going with MVD. They've got so many relations with retailers and libraries. it's great. So I'm very excited to work with them, and they've got a really cool system for tracking my inventory and everything. It's for the nerd in me, it's very exciting. And yeah, it's going to be interesting.
There's also this handshake partnership with Diabolik DVD. Can we break that down?
Yeah, I've known Jesse Diabolik for so long. We've been, oh my God, we've been working together for quite a while and friends. Right. And, we love bitching about things with each other.
And, Jesse is great at that, by the way.
Yes, but he gets so many. It's ridiculous. He's the king of attracting some strange people. And so when I knew I was moving to MVD, there is a way you can do slipcovers through MVD, but it's a little complicated and a little confusing. And I just was like, okay, well, why don't I just do it myself and then find a retailer to work with me, and immediately Diabolik, just immediately. They've just been such a big supporter for so long. So it's a pretty easy decision. And yeah, we're going to do this thing where pre-orders will determine the size of the slipcover edition, So if we get tons, it'll be 2,000. If we just get, a few, then it'll be the standard 1,000. Or maybe we'll do one of our crazy 500s event, one of those. Right. Those are weird, but, it is kind of fun. And yeah, that's the deal there. And, it might not be, I don't think it's going to be like uber exclusive with Diabolik, but they are definitely the main source to go to. And that will help us determine our print run size.
And I've been talking about this on my show. I do a live show every Thursday night, and I've been hitting this hard for some of these labels. But I will stress again, for somebody like Altered Innocence, pre-orders matter way more than labels will say publicly usually. If there's some release that you're even halfway interested in supporting, or like you desperately want people to see this, spread the word and also pre-order. Do not wait for sales.
No, it changes everything. Like, I'll just give Amazon as one example. Amazon, the more pre-orders you do, the more it gets noticed. And once it kind of gets noticed on Amazon's radar or whatever, it stays there. It's so important. Some of my older best-selling titles, I know they did well because of pre-orders, and they continue to do well to this day.
Wow.
Yeah, pre-orders are very important.
Algorithms are weird, but yeah,
very weird.
The whole pre-order situation, we literally just had a label in the last couple of weeks announce that they had to cancel a release coming out on UHD because there was a lack of pre-orders. So with some of these, like if you love Bertrand Mandico, like a lot of people that love Altered Innocence do, if you see titles coming up of Bertrand, you should probably pre-order it. Take the time to let it be known to other friends that love home video that, hey, this is out there, just to make sure. Because first off, marketing is hard, and you can do your part to help some of these. But that brings us to the first announced title. I cannot wait to hear your take on this movie, because the synopsis that you guys have, it's incredible. It is remarkable. This movie sounds amazing.
What, for She's Conann?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, it's always like Bertrand's films. It's always wet, weird, and full of glitter, basically. But with this one, I think he's added a level of poetry that we've only seen a little bit in his films, but now it's kind of gone to the next level. It's almost entering the art house sphere, but not quite, because it's still sci-fi fantasy, Conann slashing people, and lesbians making out, and and Alina Lowenson in the coolest dog prosthetic makeup. It is so cool. It's probably my favorite part of the movie, honestly. And then, of course, another awesome soundtrack by Pierre Desprats, and which is available on vinyl. Go buy it. It's on my website. And what else? Oh gosh, it's great. It's in Scope. It's a really cool one. And we're going to put 2 short films on the Blu-ray, and those are both short films that he kind of shot alongside of the film, because it was originally a play. Yeah, so it was originally a play. During COVID, they did this play, and it was like a filmed play. And then he realized, okay, if I'm filming a play already, why don't I just make this a short film? And then eventually he was like, why don't I make this a feature? So basically, there's one short film that was is more when he made the play. And then there's another short film that you can tell he shot it while he was making the feature. The sets are a little bit more, or they're larger. They're more developed. And he has the actresses. That's the other important thing, is he had the same actresses that were in the feature. It's a little different from one of the short films. I wish I could remember which was which, but I can't. And yeah, those are both really cool short films. One of them has one of the most outrageous endings I've seen in quite a while, or at least it made me guffaw like crazy. And yeah, that's going to be the Blu-ray, and it's going to be really cool. We're doing one of the another cool thing about moving away from OCN and going to do my own kind of thing is I can go back to foil. Foil is my all-time favorite thing to put on slipcases. I've done it many times before, but then OCN put a stopper to that because I think, especially with the Scary 60 whatever.
Yeah,
because that had so much foil on it, and I think a lot of it was getting scratched off, and then people were like returning it or something like that. So, but I don't do that. I just do splatter, and I do like little teeny things, so it should be okay. But yeah, I love foil. So we're gonna do this crazy splatter slip cover, and then the other side is gonna be this collage that Bertrand Mandico actually drew himself. It's really cool.
The art for this release looks stupendous, and I'm not
Sister Hyde is the best. Oh my god, I love working with Sister Hyde. Sister Hyde is
awesome. Amazing.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily say I'm going to buy this for the art, but this is one of those things that it really sells this synopsis, and yeah, cannot wait to have this one in hand. This sounds amazing, and continuing with the filmmaker that you're obviously close with, and developed a relationship not only with the filmmaker but with fans of the filmmaker who've now gone to the label multiple times for the same filmmaker.
Yep, I hope to always distribute his films. I mean, if he makes a film that A24 picks up, I will not be mad. But if he goes from me to another label like me, I'll be mad. I'll be very mad. Watch me get mad.
So the question after that, this one's already public. What is the next title coming from Altered Innocence, just to get people hyped up?
You want me to tell?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, cool. So one of my favorite films, well, here, I'll tell you a little story. One of the things that got me into effed up films is a little series that Here TV put on a long time ago called John Waters Presents Movies That Will Corrupt You. And this was a great series. It had everything from Irreversible to Freeway to Pink Narcissus to Who Killed Pasolini to, oh my gosh, the list goes on and on. But one of those was very, I mean, they all worked for me in many ways, but one of them is called Criminal Lovers by Francois Ozon, and it's definitely one of my favorites. It's this kind of Hansel and Gretel kind of reversal, except because the ogre's like this man that lives in the woods, and it's great. It's got Rimbaud quoted in it. Boom, it automatically wins for me, and there's hot guys, and anyway, so basically we are doing three of Francois Ozon's first features, and that is Criminal Lovers, Water Drops on Burning Rocks, and Sitcom. Sitcom is his first feature film. I probably did those in the opposite way, but they're all so good, and we're going to do it, and it's going to be called Ozon's Transgressive Triple, and yeah, they're going to be on Blu-ray for the first time ever. I think I don't know about internationally, but definitely English language, like subtitled. I think this is the first Blu-ray release. So very exciting. Those are the last titles of my Studio Canal kind of partnership, which I brought Wild Reeds and Wounded Man and all those. So this is one I've been kind of holding on to for probably a little too long, but it's time. Finally, I'm putting it out there in the world.
This sounds really exciting. This is the sort of thing that it's not every month, because you get a lot of sweet coming of age stories like we've talked about, but every so often Altered Innocence will be like, yeah, you've been a little too calm for a while. Here's
exactly. Yeah, we're definitely May and June are definitely going to be transgressive months. I think Ozons are coming out in June. I think it's June, maybe July. But yeah, we're going to have a couple of transgressive months, that's for sure.
That is so exciting. And a lot of these, again, it's continuing this pattern of similarly styled or like-minded films that are pushing buttons, sort of expanding boundaries. And, I got to talk about Irreversible for a moment, because that's transgressive to the nth degree for so many people because of two very specific scenes, one in particular, obviously, but it's one that is always on this list of like hardest movies to watch and all that. But beyond that, it's a Gaspar Noé film, and that is such a big deal for what I'm sure you would say is for comparatively a smaller label than you would expect a movie like this to show up on. So how the hell did you get Irreversible? This is amazing.
I guess people were scared of it or something. I don't know why. No, seriously, it was so funny. I remember the sales agent, we were working on all these films, and he was like, well, what about Irreversible? And I was like, I mean... how much money? And then he kind of quoted me, and I was like, oh, let me think about it. And then he came back to me again. He was like, what about Irreversible? I'm like, really? Okay, let's do it. I mean, I was shocked as you. It did not seem like it would go my way. I think it was all about timing. I think it had, just expired from Lionsgate, and I think no one had asked him. And we were kind of in the midst of doing this one deal, so he was just like, why don't I put that one on there too? And I was like, thank you very much. I appreciate you.
See,
thank you, Studio Canal.
That's such a big deal for a label like Altered Innocence, because not only does it bring new customers, but then as they're clicking, they go, oh, what's this? And this, and this. And they
exactly
immediately expand their horizons, and suddenly Altered Innocence is in way more homes than you would expect.
Yep, that's exactly my thoughts as I was picking up. I mean, I love the film regardless, but yeah, of course, it's such a huge film. It's super famous. I'm actually surprised it didn't do. I put it out in theaters. Actually, didn't do that well. Shocking. I'm gonna hint weirdly, but I think it just goes to show what a tough film it is. I think some people are just afraid of re-experiencing that, honestly. I think for a lot of people that's a one and done film, and I saw it when I was a kid, so for me, I think what you were saying, it's a Gaspar Noé film more than anything else. So for me as a kid watching it, I was just like, but this movie's so cool beyond the transgress, the very intense scenes. It's just such a cool film. Kind of reminds you of, well, maybe I shouldn't say that. Well, I just saw Aggro Drift in a strip club, and it was like one of the wildest experiences I've had in a while. And I don't know, it kind of reminds me, different styles of filmmaking. Anyway, or wild new styles.
I'm going to talk to you about that after we end this, because I got another story for you.
Excellent. But yeah, it's a great film, and I'm very honored to have been able to work on it.
Well, and one thing I want to say is just, I know it's just kudos after kudos, but Alexandra Heller-Nicholas, speaking on behalf of this movie, is such the perfect companion piece. She's literally the expert. And I'm so glad that somebody like you is wise enough to make that choice. And again, contextualize what is kind of a really harmful scene for a lot of people. And beyond that, it's an individual that has spoken widely about the genre for years, so she's genuinely trusted, and I'm grateful that she's on this disc.
Yeah, actually, technically, the thanks for that go to the UK producer, but yes. I do work with Alexandra on other things. But it was cool to email her and just be like, hey, we're able to put this on here, and she was like, awesome. But yeah, no, she's the best. Yeah, she's really good.
She is becoming prolific like crazy. She is suddenly showing up on like every disc. I love everything she does. Everybody needs to seek her out too. Interview up on the channel before this one, so go look at that one.
Awesome.
With the MVD transfer, are there any worries that you want to make people feel a little more comfortable with the transition? Is there anything? Any questions?
I mean, it's going to be a pretty smooth transition. I hope that, wherever you get your films, you're still going to be able to get them. Of course, send me an email if you encounter any issues. I'm very, easy to get a hold of. Emails on the website. And, it should be up on all the usual channels, Amazon, Diabolik, Deep Discount, all the good ones. And hopefully, they'll still sell to a few international kind of key places. But yeah, just let me know if you can't find anything. Happy to help.
I really hope people make the transition with Altered Innocence. I fear that one or two of the other partner labels that have made the jump away from OCN kind of got lost in the transitional shuffle. But now that it's becoming a little more common, I think people are looking out for it more. The only thing I definitely feel for the international customers that were just so accustomed to adding it into the box, but it's at Diabolik if you want. You're probably already buying something internationally from Diabolik. It won't be that much more to add one more title. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, Diabolik has so many good titles, so just make it a monthly or bi-monthly thing. It's make it a big package, and should be fine.
I am stoked for the future of Altered Innocence, and now I have to share that story I was going to bring up about Equation for an Unknown. So before I share the actual story, for anybody that's never seen it, can you share what Equation for an Unknown is?
Absolutely, of course. So Equation to an Unknown is a film we kind of restored alongside Knife Plus Heart. It is a you know, again, using the word previously lost, gay porn film. And it was, I can't remember the exact year. I feel like it's 78 or 82, somewhere around there. And it was shot by this guy. He went by the name of Dietrich de Velsa. But he's actually known as Francis Savell, and he was a set designer. He worked with, oh gosh, I can't remember. And it's this kind of melancholic porn film, and shockingly art house, well photographed, and has this very haunting soundtrack. It's haunting the whole time, but even in the last orgy scene, there's just like a woman crying, while all these like hot guys are having really hot sex. It's very strange, has this sad feel throughout it, but it's also so good. I mean, I'm kind of like, almost like I feel like I'm like downplaying it, but it is a fantastic film. Really hot guys, hot sex, and it's you'll have an experience for 90 minutes. That's for sure. It's unlike anything else.
I love that you use that as the last sentence right before what I'm about to say. So a couple years ago, I swear it was about 3 or 4 months after the disc release, it played at the New Bev. It was the second feature of a double feature. I don't remember what the first film was, but
it was Knife Plus Heart. Yeah.
Okay, so I had said, I saw Knife Plus Heart. This looks like a pretty killer double feature. I'm not in LA, but I had a friend who is every month he sends me the calendar for the New Bev, and I said, Knife Plus Heart is an incredible film. You will love it. I haven't watched the second film yet, but it's from the same label. They're all OCN partners. I really think that if you like Knife Plus Heart, you're probably going to like the double feature. Go check it out. This gentleman is always late. LA traffic didn't help with that, of course. He showed up something like 10 minutes in to the second feature. So he shows up to Equation to an Unknown, goes and buys his snacks and goes and sits down in a room full of all dudes. And he goes, I'm looking for a seat, and look up, and I don't remember. It was one of the opening scenes, but there was just full-blown like art house fellatio happening in front of him. And he goes, well, this is an interesting movie. And then gave it a few minutes, and he texted me right after and goes, I think you just catfished me into a gay porn. I was like, no, I mean, I've heard it's good. I just haven't watched it yet. I'm sorry. But it's become this long-running story that is hilarious that I accidentally sent him to a gay porn movie.
It's good for you. I'm glad.
I'm just glad he brought in his horizons, and it's a spectrum.
So did he stay for it?
He stayed and watched the entire thing.
Excellent. I was going to be like, if you don't see that great jerk off scene that happens midway through the film, one of the best. I don't watch many jerk off scenes, but it's a great one. It's like it's all like one take.
I'm probably going to have to put something related to that sentence in the title now. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Frank, we could spend probably 25 minutes on each of these individual titles. I would love to have you back someday. I really just wanted to have you on here to make people understand Altered Innocence is important. They're one that I would advocate to supporting way more than some of these others. Not that we shouldn't support all home video and all that, but unfortunately, with a lot of these films aren't going to have a huge audience. And finding somebody that you appreciate the taste and curation of, like I do for Frank, is special and pretty rare. So if you trust me, trust Altered Innocence. This is a really great company, and I just hope for the best for the immediate future for you.
Thank you, Ryan. I really appreciate that.
All right. Well, have a good one. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Talk to you later.
Thank you for watching The Disconnected. On the way out, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, that you've liked the video, and that you've copied the link to be able to share with someone else that may appreciate this.